Right, 6th of January, up in the woods for 3 hours maybe. Don't know yet, depends how things go and depends if it rains. Not really keen on getting wet again. What I want to do is extend the cord. Got up to about height at the back end, sorry about the top. But I can't extend it until these are down. And I'm not really keen on cutting these down. You see they're all tangled up the top. So if they come over this way, skirting the canopy of this big ash, that would work. But before I do that, I want these down. So that's what I want to do this morning. Once these are down, and I'll fell them so the tops fall on here as much as I can. This is the dead hedge along this bottom side. Then I'll tackle these. Then my way will be clear to stack more on the cord because I'm kind of running out of space. So let's set you up on the moved thingamajig. I'll leave you there. Can I see? Can you see? Right, I think that'll do. Maybe kick around a little bit more. And that's where that is, next door to my workspace. Right, off we go with the time lapse. Right, so that's those two stalls cut. You might not have been able to tell from the time lapse, but they've all been felled directional felling, the bird's mouth and the cut, even though they're only about that sort of diameter, because that gives you a lot more control. Fell them low, you've got more lever advantage, so you push them over the way they want. Even if, like this one, they're in the top of this tree here and it did tangle up in this overhead branch, but if you've got a decent hinge, about a tenth of thickness, maybe a little more on these little tiny ones, you've got some certainty over the way it goes. Yeah, you might think this isn't going to do you a mischief, but believe me, it can. So I always err on the side of caution. So done that one over there because it was in the way. Now I've got to do these two here, and I can extend these out. That's what I've cut. The rest you can might have seen from the time lapse. Tops went on here, and you just spin the top round. And because I've got so much material here, I've been cutting through and through, just to make the dead hedge more dense. Otherwise, it'll be insanely tall and insanely wide, and it'll rot down faster if it's in smaller bits. Because this will stay here, I'd like to be able to have a chunker in here and chunk these up and use those as firewood as well. But I haven't got resources, haven't got a chunker, haven't got any means of getting the chunks out. Chunks are little bits about that sort of length, like really big chips. But we're progressing this way quite nicely. Now I've got to decide what I do with these. Because obviously if I take the dead hedge all the way through here and then come to do something with these, it'll be in the way. These are all firewood, 5 foot lengths, 2 saw lengths. What I could have done, if I'd have had half a brain and thought about it, is actually cut these as 5'6" measured, and they could have gone as hedging stakes. I might do that from now because I've got quite a lot of material of this sort of size. but this one here may well be used as a layer. See, it's nice and tall and straight and thin, if I can get others down without it being in the way. It's always a toss-up between expediency and ease of felling and leaving stuff for the layering. Over here won't need any layering at all because these are nice stall density. This patch here will grow back very nicely indeed. Right, welcome back. Done a bit more since you've been away. So I've got a couple of stems off of here and a stem off there, which was leaning out this way, stopping everything else from going down. You can see here, well, hopefully the time lapse showed up. Fell it on the top. Could have filled this further over here, but more the top would have overlapped into the field. Could have filled it more over here, but then the top would have missed. So the idea is to sned it up, log it into 5 foot lengths, and then cut it here and swing the back on. And all these little bits on the top, which I'll remove, the side branches, they'll go on the top too. Over here I've felled this big dead hawthorn. That, as you can see, went straight on. Nice big wide hinge because it was dead. And then this one here is a hazel from the stall next door to it. You can see the stump, which I'll get to clean off. And then if it's plonked straight on the end of your hedge like this one, you can cut it into lengths, and it's at a nice convenient height. And then you can pull your lengths out of the hedge. And that's the top over there. This one's a bit wibbly wobbly, but never mind, it'll burn. And it's not too bad. Right, gonna have a little break, fill my saw up. Just about used a tank so far this morning. And then do a bit more and hope the rain, which is just starting, doesn't get too heavy. Because I haven't brought a coat. Right, I think I said I'd show you how to build your cord. So this is what I'll do. Here's what you need. Need some uprights. And I put points on these with a chainsaw. Not particularly terribly wonderful points because they're only going in about 6 inches. And then we've got some stobs. 2 of those will be used. Some bearers, which can be the wibbly wobbly horrible bits, as long as they're straight enough in one plane to keep your firewood from sitting on the ground. Big stopper log, bigger diameter the better. Instead of using an axe pole or a sledgehammer, I use a Cyberman. Use it this way up, the proper way up, inverted commas, to drive in the long ones, and use it the wrong way up, so this end down, to drive in the stobs. And the stobs ideally go like this to stop the bearers moving and to stop the your stopper log moving. And then the uprights go in here. Right, we'll get on and do that and come back when we've done. So other things to think about is find a relatively level piece of ground. In this wood there isn't such. We're not convenient to a place where I can actually take the material out. And try and avoid stalls. There's a stall here, and it'll be able to grow out the side. We'll move slightly that way, but this poor little stall here will stay underneath, so this might not survive. This bit here is, I think, an elm sucker. We're close to a hedge line here, and there are very few suckering elms actually still visible in the hedge. The elms before Dutch elm disease were very commonly found in hedge lines and hedgerows. Not really a coppice species because they sucker more than coppice, so suckering is growing back from the roots. And there's quite a few of those through here, tiny little things, these here as well that the deer have chewed to pieces. So these might get a bit of a chance when they're protected against deer. But do we want elms growing in here? Well, it's not ideal, but well, a bit of diversity is never a bad thing, I suppose. And this is the fruits of our labour so far today. A lot of it's horrible, gnarly, pippy stuff with a lot of epicormic growth on it. Small diameter, but I didn't have to move it very far at all. If this had been at the other end of the cant, up there, it would have gone on the dead hedge. But as it's here, and it'll season and it'll burn and it'll end up being starters, yeah, okay, that's fine. We've got plenty of material for this dead hedge here. So, right, let's get on with that and come back when we've done. So, 5 minutes later, and we've put in the 2 uprights and the 2 stobs. I like doing it with the Cyberman. Some people call these drivewalls D-R-I-V-A-L-L. Some people call them post knockers. That's what they normally do. I like to call them Cybermen. People used to call them like that a lot in the 80s. I basically used to love Doctor Who, so Cybermen. And I made this one. This one's unusually small. It's made out of a bit of a lamppost. So it's fairly thin. It's dead easy for one guy to use without knackering himself. And a decent size. If your posts are too big for this to fit, then you need a bigger drywall and somebody to help you do it, or a post knocker on a tractor. So, a bit of lamp standard and some bits of climbing frame. Came out of a skip at the dump. You ask them nicely, they'll sell you bits and bobs. So, we'll load all this lot up and then get on with a bit more cutting. Right, making progress.